Okay, I think we can start. It's about after lunchtime, so hopefully everyone is awake and had his coffee before we dive into the challenges we had with SAP to bring the cloud platform to China. I will tell you, so to speak, in a nutshell, it was quite a very interesting and joyful project for myself and the team. As some of you may know, the SAP Cloud Platform is a very big solution that uses CloudFoundry open source counterpart. For the part of you that may be not familiar with the Cloud Platform, we will have in a bit a slide that will show the high-level architecture. So we will both see what it really means like to have a cloud platform, and also a little bit touch the deployment story to see how actually we deploy the things and operate the platform. So we will touch that in a second. So first, my name is Alex Volchok. I'm from SAP Cloud Platform Labs. Now my team is part of the core area, and normally the team is working on different SAP Cloud Platform project that aim to allow the cloud platform to extend itself and run on new hyperscalers. So before Alibaba and China, we already had experience to allow the cloud platform to run on top of Azure and also on top of the Google Cloud Platform. So we had some experience. We didn't come completely new by to try and make it work in China. However, we had some surprises. We had some challenges to overcome, and I will share them with you. Hopefully it will be interesting for you to learn and see how we try to pass the journey. So let's start with a quick introduction. So SAP Cloud Platform in a nutshell. Great. So what is the SAP Cloud Platform? In general, the SAP Cloud Platform utilizes the open source CloudFoundry on top of any runtime a developer can pick. Python, Java, anything that you would like to develop, also available in the regular CloudFoundry that you just set up from scratch. SAP also offer enterprise-grade level services for persistency, for connectivity. So you can, for instance, decide and connect the cloud platform to on-premise. You can connect that to your own IDP. And as well, of course, use different database or different HANA services that are all come in enterprise level quality. And all of that, if you are an operator or an admin on the left side, can be consumed using the regular CloudFoundry CLI. So behind the scenes, we utilize, so to speak, for all our services, the Open Broker API. So everything is integrated to CloudFoundry on a really, so to speak, low level. So you can do everything from CLI, and you can also do everything from UI. For the UI area, we also have a cockpit that allows to administrate and get some, so to speak, of all the options available for specific services. So that's mainly what we have. Of course, the list here is very simplified. We have a much higher, so to speak, level of services, but that's less interesting in this specific session. So I'm skipping that. And I'm focusing on the deployment story. So it is very interesting to see how we deploy the cloud platform, because we know to deploy that to different hyperscalers. So as I mentioned, we have AWS, we have also Google Cloud Platform, and we also have OpenStack. OpenStack is something that SAP use in-house to offer CloudFoundry to customers on SAP data centers. And as well, Alibaba Cloud is also a hyperscaler that we are interested to work on. And that's also somewhere that we can deploy. So how the deployment story works. In a nutshell, we have an infrastructure as a code concept where one, so to speak, product repository can be configured differently depending on the hyperscaler that we would like to deploy the platform to. So in case we would like to deploy the platform to AWS, we will have the same product. And if we go to Alibaba Cloud, it also will be the same product. The actors that we have today are Bosch and Terraform. So Bosch knows to provision and, so to speak, deploy normally VM workloads. And Terraform normally is very good with resources. So in case we want to set up a networking model, or we would like to create different, so to speak, IaaS-related resources, we will use Terraform. And in case we would like to provision different VMs, we will use the Bosch. And the way to, so to speak, instrument Bosch and Terraform to do what we would like them to do is to provide them, so to speak, the code that actually is the infrastructure as a code concept that we have, and that actually the receipt that in the end will generate for Bosch the Bosch manifests. So we have that in a more high layer language saying like what we need, what networks, whatsoever, and then Bosch will get his manifest and will be able to deploy the actual VM. Bosch will do it because he has an adapter. So for each YAS layer, normally an adapter is implemented so that the Bosch can translate his manifest already to the YAS specific implementation and provision the VM with all the right features that need to be in place. Terraform has the same thing, so he also knows to, so to speak, translate Terraform commands to different, so to speak, YAS-specific language, and he also knows to perform that. So by actually leveraging infrastructure as a code model, we could model the main important things that we need for the platform, so to speak, separated from Terraform and Bosch, and Terraform and Bosch are working like an executors that read the manifest, deploy. However, the logic and everything is, so to speak, managed on a different layer. And all the variables from Terraform are shared with Bosch. So Bosch can build on networks created with Terraform and vice versa. And from actually the runner perspective, so we have developers and we have admins. So an admin can actually go connect to one of our environments and initiate a deployment for a component. A component can be a VM running, so to speak, CloudFoundry, or VMs running CloudFoundry. And also, this process can begin with a repository. So we can have a repository that is monitored by Concurs. And as long as Concurs detect a change that comes from a team, it can actually bring the change online, deploy the necessary things. So how does it look like? So in a nutshell, this is Concurs. Concurs has a lot of components that it needs to deploy. Actually, it's like the platform in a nutshell. So you can see all these green cubes. All these cubes are different components that we deploy. And it all starts with a commit in the landscape repository. Sorry. And from there we go. So a lot of cubes. Each cube actually is implemented in a way that only if you have changes, it is going to update or run those changes. And in case there are none, it's going to be skipped. And the trigger is changes in the landscape. So in terms of deployment, so we have one code line that can be deployed everywhere. And what we need to figure out is Terraform and CPI. So the first things we started to work on with the Alibaba Cloud, so to speak, teams is on establishing support for the Bosch CPI, because we had to allow Bosch to work with the Alibaba Cloud. So we had to meet with the teams to see that indeed in terms of the Bosch CPI, it's something that can be done, also meet the SAP Cloud Platform timelines. And also from Terraform features, it all began to evolve when we firstly engaged, so to speak, with the Alibaba Cloud teams, and we started to discuss that we would like to, so to speak, enable this picture here. And for that, we needed the CPI and the Terraform ready. So back then, it was 2017 that we firstly spoke, so to speak, brought those early requirements. Today, luckily for us, we have this solved. So in theory, once we have CPI and Terraform, we can deploy the platform, because those are, so to speak, the prerequisites that we had to have in place to make the deployment happen. And of course, once we have Bosch and CPI, we could make, in theory, the cloud platform run. That's just an illustration from another angle of all the services working on top of Alibaba Cloud, SAP CloudFoundry, SAP Platform services, and backing services on a different level, on a different view, but more of the same. Okay, now let me take you back to the journey, and let me start and share how it all started, from where we have, so to speak, started to search our path in, and so to speak, how it all evolved. So on day one, we actually wanted to get a feeling of what does it mean to work in Alibaba Cloud. So it is a cloud. We already had some experience with working with different vendors, but actually so to speak, the feeling around Alibaba Cloud was that we are going to get something really good, because Alibaba Cloud in China is part of the Alibaba Group, and the Alibaba Group is a very, very big and massive group in Asia. They're having products and services that are actually supplying the needs of more consumers, or more, so to speak, online users than even AWS. They have solutions in the area of of eBay, of YouTube, of so to speak AWS shop, and even in areas of so to speak payments like Visa payments. So it's not that common in China or in Asia. What's used normally is Alipay, 50% market share, and as well other solutions from other vendors as WeChat. But as a foreigner traveling to China, actually credit cards not always accepted in all areas, and the most convenient way to pay, even from something that you can buy on the street, is just to use the application. If you don't have it, by the way, you cannot get it. So if you're a foreigner, you cannot actually install the application and pay, because you also have to do some, so to speak, banking setup in China to make that happen, but that's another story. So that's like, at least from my side, was feeling that you cannot pay for everything, so yeah. Anyhow, the good thing about all of that is Alibaba Cloud is using their own services and they host their services in the Alibaba Cloud. So all the, so to speak, solutions that they have for their customers, for their partners, YouTube in China, also Alipay, they are all hosted as well on the Alibaba Cloud, what makes it a very mature cloud and a very, so to speak, seeing that they treat with care. There are a lot of development teams that work on that cloud, and our expectations were actually high. We expected to get at least the same features as we had in Google and AWS when we started to work, and to tell you, it was pretty much the same. So we will touch it in a second, but but it was pretty much the same back then already in 2017. So before touching Alibaba Cloud, those are some specific China-related challenges that we had to encounter, and I will just read the highlights. We will have some more deep dive into the topics in the next slides. So first step towards enabling a solution in Alibaba Cloud is to select your account. So they have two account types, international and domestic one. You need, of course, to understand what are the difference, how they work, how they correlate before you can select an account to run for the SAP Cloud Platform on. There is a time and a DNS aspect. So time is essentially very important in the world of, so to speak, hosting, technology, computing, security is based on that, and essentially we had to see that from the time perspective we get accurate time between, so to speak, VMs that run on the platform in Asia or in China and the other, so to speak, setups that we have in other hyperscalers. Just the time, so to speak, is also spread into several dimensions. So we have time configured on Bosch stem cells and VMs that somehow come from the community stem cell builder project. And there are also, so to speak, time that is set up on the VMs on Alibaba Cloud from scratch. Just for everyone's information, if you provision a VM from Alibaba Cloud, even in Frankfurt, you will have China local time on that VM. So that's, yeah. So that's may surprise. But anyhow, that's like something that you need to know, and you can actually react on that if you know that this is the case. DNS is also something that may be flaky, so we noticed that sometimes when you try to resolve DNS on Ali Cloud VMs that are provisioned in China, you may get not accurate results for websites or content that is not allowed in China. So if a website is blocked, the DNS actually may lead you to a faulty, so to speak, response. Luckily for us, we didn't, so to speak, consume content from, so to speak, blocked or sites with issues. But anyhow, like resolving Facebook or things that are blocked may actually lead to unexpected DNS results. Shared domain concept. So today, CloudFoundry offers a shared domain concept where it essentially makes it more easy to start for developers. The only thing you need to care, like if you want to quickly start, is to have an account or to have, so to speak, an organization in CloudFoundry. Then you can simply go and CF push. In China, it's not so easy. So we will touch that, and you will see why it's not so easy just to start with a CF push. Internet connectivity we will also discuss, but in general, so CF push is not so trivial. It's not so trivial because the internet connectivity is not always the best, and there are some options to actually improve that. source code and repositories. So if you are relying on different source code and repositories and you want to build in China, you also should think how you actually can make those repositories closer. And of course, the Bosch releases themselves, those that Bosch used to actually deploy the VMs, those also somehow need to be more closer to your deployment. But there are some options, like it's either you solve it, but some solutions best exist to actually go and work it out. Okay, getting started. So account and portal, as I said, we have Chinese portal that is, so to speak, domestic one and a domestic account, and there is also an account that is international. So which one to use? If you have a legal entity or a company established in China, you can go for a domestic one. If you don't have, then the best option is to go for international account. International account and domestic account offer the same features more or less. So from the SAP Cloud Platform core features, we had everything that's needed also available in the international account, and also the same features in the domestic. The domestic has an advantage of releases. So Alibaba Cloud strategy is that they do domestic first. Both portals are translated to English. So switching quickly to the portal to show you how it looks like. So this is actually a domestic account type. It is translated to English. There might be some new services added up that are not fully translated. From service perspective view, so if we go to like products, so you can see that we have like a huge list of services and products that are available to consume from Ali Cloud. So of course we have all the base services as VPC, networking, security groups. However, there are a lot of other advanced, so to speak, services that you would expect to get as connectivity services and so forth. So deciding what to start on. So if you have a corporate, so to speak, or an option to delegate, so to speak, to a company in China some responsibilities, so I guess it's a good idea to start with domestic. So with SAP, we do have such an entity established in China. For POC, we tried both options, but eventually today we use actually a domestic account that's completely operated and run through the domestic entity that we have. Domains hosting. So how does that work? So actually, it's not that trivial to get your website online in China if it is hosted in China. So if you would like to host your application in China, you have some regulatory that you have to actually solve before you make your website available. So practically, technically, everything works, but if it doesn't have the ISP filing, the load balancer will simply block your website, because that's regulation that you have to, so to speak, fulfill before you can open your website to the world. And from that perspective, the process suggests that first, you have to get a public IP. So somehow the customers should know what public IP, so to speak, the platform has in China. Then you had to go and do a filing, a local filing, depending on the area that your company is registered in China. If you are not a company in China, so it's also possible, but you have to have a local person in China that will do the registration for you. So that's normally, there are agencies that probably can do that, but it's more complex to get started. And that's required if you're going to host content in China. So you cannot actually host content on a website that will be available in China if you are not, so to speak, ongoing over this process. In the end, the filing should link to a real person. So there should be a real person that can be found in case you have some content foliation on your website. And that's one of the, so to speak, strong requirements and things that lead us to a place where allowing applications to run on a shared domain in CF somehow could risk, so to speak, the SAP registered domain. So we didn't fully solve that yet. Currently, the solution is to offer customers to onboard with a private domain. If you onboard with a private domain and you link into the platform, then essentially you're telling that, okay, I'm the owner of the content of this domain. And on our side, we had to somehow see that the shared domain cannot be used by everyone. So actually, we had to restrict the shared domain only for the China use case to avoid this kind of, so to speak, misuse by customers that could somehow host content in China without passing the full ICP certification process. ICP certification is not a small process. It actually also includes a BCP process that you have to undergo after you approve your domain. Also, from a point of view of DNS management, it's not, so to speak, straightforward. So really, when looking that up, you should go to the details, see that everything makes sense, and so to speak, proceed with caution, because it's a tricky process. It has a lot of regulations and a lot of steps to understand to make it happen. But luckily, companies that operate today in Asia, so they know how to so to speak, fulfill the process, and for them that's very trivial because that's how they operate today. Connectivity. So connectivity is, like, I think, one of the most challenges we had in the project before we even were able to, so to speak, I don't know, deploy one stem cell or deploy one VM. We had to understand how we get things to work reproducibly. And the thing is that if you don't, so to speak, find a solution for the connectivity, you cannot make reproducible downloads in China. So what happens is that you will notice that if you download things from outside of China and you're located in China because you're hosting things there, you will have, so to speak, issues to consume content from outside of China, no matter where. Even from Hong Kong, you will have connectivity issues. Those issues will feel like something that, so to speak, throttling. You will see that the line bandwidth goes from, so to speak, I don't know, 100 MB to like kilobits, and sometimes even worse. Sometimes it can increase, but it's not reproducible. So you cannot, so to speak, reproducibly count that your download will complete. For us, it was impossible to deploy the platform because we have, so to speak, timeouts in place everywhere. And in case something is not deployed in a specific time, then it's timed out, and that's game over. And we have thousands of files that need to be downloaded. So each file, in theory, could introduce, so to speak, a reason for a timeout. So absolutely no option to deploy without solving first the connectivity problem. We have approached Alibaba Cloud, and luckily for us, there is a solution that we can use to accelerate and, so to speak, solve the connectivity problems. However, so to speak, there are three options to go. The first solution is to consume, so to speak, additional VPC in a region that is, so to speak, outside of China. You can go for Hong Kong, or you can go for Frankfurt, depending on the cost. So each region will have its own, so to speak, cost with that line. However, this line actually has a guarantee from throughput perspective. So it's not like the connectivity is slow and not good for everything. If you have, so to speak, a line, the connectivity can be quite well, so to speak, taken care of by the China Unicom, because they can guarantee you the throughput. And we actually tested that, and we saw that we have the throughput guarantee. And from networking perspective, so you can easily configure which networks on the CloudFoundry side you would like to accelerate to get the resources in. From our perspective, we wanted to accelerate the Bosch networks, and we wanted to accelerate the areas that were related to concourse. So the highlighting here is incorrect. We actually accelerated only Bosch and concourse. So concourse on our side is actually building things. So it downloads the different code repositories that we have in Europe, and it knows to package them and then, so to speak, apply Terraform or Bosch to get the things online. So once we solved concourse downloads and we solved Bosch downloads for stem cell and different other artifacts that Bosch needed to build, so to speak, what it's need, we could essentially download all our repositories and make things happen in terms of just reproducible and just deployable in China. One small remark, we don't want to accelerate the traffic for the Diego cells themselves. Diego cells are responsible for the applications. Those are, so to speak, the cells that we push the applications on, and then those are shared between SAP and the customer. And from a regulation perspective, we can accelerate and use, so to speak, that line for SAP, but we cannot share that line for a customer because we have to, so to speak, do also behind the scenes a contractual, so to speak, arrangement to utilize that line. So it's all okay, you can use that, but you have to declare your use case and you have to control the use case and communicate it also to the authority to consume that line from the Alibaba Cloud provider. So for SAP, we've done that, and we also done specific effort to only accelerate the networks that we use to deploy the platform. And on our deployment, Concurs and also Bosch, they are having their own networks, and we can actually, using the Alibaba Cloud routing, to specify different routes for those components to access the internet than the Diego cells. And that actually makes that somehow legal for us to go and download our repositories, our code lines that need to be there for allowing the platform to run, and separate that from the customer use case that we didn't want to accelerate. And the other alternative to solve, so to speak, the connectivity issues is the self-contained approach. With that approach, we actually bring everything to China, no matter what channel. It can be the same channel that we use to, so to speak, on runtime for Concurs and Bosch to download the repositories. But with this approach, we actually just ship, so to speak, all the code lines. We make sure that the Bosch releases and everything that is going to be used is going to be really self-contained. And when it is in China, then everything is okay. So one thing to note, if you are working in China and you're not consuming resources from Europe, you're totally fine. So internet connectivity there is very high. You will get 110 bits. The only problem is if you have a cross scenario, if you consume from China resources that are hosted outside of China, or if you try to consume resources from China, so to speak, from other regions. Like if I'm trying to download I don't know, a Bosch stem cell from Europe that is hosted somehow in China, I will have issues, and the other way around. But if it is China to China, no issues. And then we had to actually, and this is the approach we are currently working to deliver artifacts. As it is good from two perspectives. So first, we don't need to, so to speak, for the productive releases to transfer too much. We have normally a very defined set of content that we want to release. We have very stable versions for the productive releases. So we have really an option to package the services and ship them in a channel. And then, so to speak, all the landscapes and all the regions, regional, so to speak, resources that we consume in the China environment are locally available. We save on line costs. The cross-border line is very expensive, and also that is completely isolated from outside the world. So if, so to speak, tomorrow there will be line connectivity issues, so the impact won't be immediate, and also for most of the services we will be able to, so to speak, get the updates very fast, locally reproducible, and no bottleneck, so to speak, to do that. Today, so to speak, you have also an option to pre-compile the build packs. It's also one thing we had to take care of for the customer side, because build packs are also consuming, so to speak, different artifacts on build time. And for that, we have offline versions for all the build packs that are available in CloudFoundry that we ship to China, and we actually have a process that pre-build them, and we deliver that allows customers to still, so to speak, use the runtimes that they are used to in China without any, so to speak, need to compile or download things for the build pack itself in runtime. So we don't accelerate that, but however, we do provide already the compressed and the compiled build packs for the customers to use in China. Okay, let's see how we are from time perspective. Okay. Great. So what we have today on CloudFoundry on Alibaba. So from project perspective, CloudFoundry Community Edition actually did a long pass. So from 2017 till today, we have Bosch CPI that's fully validated, at least by the SAP Cloud Platform. We use that with the latest version. We have Bosch stem cells available. They have also a light stem cell that you can download. It's 20 kilobyte size, and it's quite easy to establish that. We have a CI process that Alibaba Cloud implemented to test the Bosch releases and to test the CPI releases. So that's something that you can also feel good about because it's validated and the releases are tested. We have option to use bits for blob storage. And there is also an option to use fog. However, fog is something that is still flaky today. However, that's something that Alibaba Cloud is working to resolve. And of course, there is a very good support on the Terraform area for all the APIs and services that Alibaba Cloud has. So it even goes beyond CloudFoundry. It started with our ask to enable Terraform for CloudFoundry deployment and the needs that we had, so to speak, for the SAP Cloud Platform. However, it's way over and beyond today. It has support for most of the services that they have in Alibaba Cloud. IaaS services, so what we consume is listed. However, they, of course, has a much bigger list in Alibaba Cloud for you to select from. So we today consume VPC services, security groups, routes, PostgreSQL directly from Alibaba Cloud. There is also this product for internet connectivity. It's called Express Connect, but there is a newer alternative that's called SEN, so you can select which one you would like to have. Of course, the VM service and the regular storage, DNS, all kind of services. Account, we can use the domestic. However, if you don't have an entity in China, you can go for the international one. I think that's it from the introduction session to our journey to Alibaba Cloud. I will be happy if you have any questions, and I'll try to answer. So thanks.